Good morning, guys. Today we are having breakfast in bed because it is freezing out there and I want to enjoy my morning and not freeze to death. So first we are starting off with our Mighty C juice shot. Still not sick. I remember every year without fail I would get sick, especially during the cold seasons, because I just did. I was always sick, always. And when I get sick, it gets so bad. Like on my third day, it's the worst. I feel like I'm dying. Like I can't even get out of bed. And I haven't been sick in so long now, and I'm not going to get sick because I'm healthy. I remember watching a video one time, and this woman was saying that our bodies are not meant to get sick. Like, we're not supposed to be getting sick all the time. And I remember watching that and thinking, there's no way. Like, I'm always sick. But now, that is not the case. I don't get sick anymore. So now I'm like, okay, maybe there was truth to what she was saying. My breakfast has 37 grams of protein. So today we are going to be getting into the word, and then after I'm going to be working on my presentation that I have to give today in class. I'm doing my presentation on emotional wellness, and our professor said to choose an area, right? She gave us some options, some ideas that we can pull from. She chose trauma bond relationships last week, so I was between trauma in general or emotional wellness, and ultimately I chose emotional wellness just because I feel like at this time in my life that is the most authentic thing that I can speak on, because it's something that has highlighted my life over the past few years, whereas trauma, I feel like it's so far in my past that it's not something that's currently of value, because I've healed from so much already, and I know that can be of so much value to somebody out in the world. And I would love to make a video on how to heal trauma and how to work through generational trauma, but right now I just feel called to focus on emotional wellness because I am curious to find out what steps my classmates take for their emotional wellness, and it's just a topic of conversation I want to have. And so since it's group-led therapy, I'm leading a group therapy session, like a mock therapy session, right? Because it's my classmates, but it's preparing us for one day being able to be in front of a group of people and lead the therapy session. Also learned that initially within group therapy, a lot of personalities are brought forth, right? There is a possibility of a lot of clashing, where I find myself like who I am at the beginning, where personalities clash the most. I'm very quiet, I'm very observant, and I think that's the part of me where I like to be aware of my surroundings. I like to know if I'm safe somewhere where I'm able to open up and express myself in a safe environment. So initially, like the first few classes, I'm as quiet as possible, just observing everyone and everything and what I'm hearing. And I feel like when I don't involve myself, you get to really see people for who they are. And I was the kind of person in the past where I used to project who I was onto others. So I always saw the best in other people. I always saw love in others. I always saw goodness in others because I have that in me. I have God in me, right? So I project a lot. And that got me into a lot of situations where I was treated terribly because these people were not like me. So I had to learn the hard way. And that is, I think, a skill. I call it a skill because I don't see anything wrong with it. Correct me if I'm wrong. Other people might see it as a defense mechanism, but I think it's a healthy one because I just observe, and that observation doesn't change who I am. It just lets me know whether or not I can be fully myself, or if I can only show parts of myself to a certain group of people. And in interpersonal relationships, it's important to be fully yourself, right? Because if you're not being your full self with your intimate relationships, right, with the people you're closest with in life, then there's a problem there. But with strangers, people you're first meeting, group settings, classmates, peers, work relationships, stuff like that, they don't have to see you for your full self, because I think I've reached a point in my understanding, where not everyone deserves to know your hardest hardships, right? Not everyone deserves to know the deepest part of you, because that's sacred. That's between you and God already. Just because you don't share it with the world doesn't mean that it doesn't exist, right? So those sacred parts of you are between you and God, and who God calls you to share it with, right? If I was in a group setting and God told me, Michelle, I need you to share this right now, and it makes me so uncomfortable and I don't want to share it, I ultimately will, because I know that there's going to be value there for somebody listening. But if it were up to me, I would never say anything my whole life and just be quiet. That's my safe zone. That's what I love to do, just to be quiet. But I know that I am God's vessel and I can't live my life in silence. And I think that's why God gave me this unique voice, because he wants me to use it. And I'm exercising my voice more this year. Last year was the year of boundaries. This year is the year of vulnerability, right? So putting myself out into the world in a very vulnerable way, sharing some. And the things of the Lord, they're so important to talk about, because a lot of people do not know what's in here. And I used to learn from other people, right? But also, we're not just hearing from another person, we're hearing from another person's perspective, what they've been through, their interpretation of the Word of God. And if you're going to have a personal relationship with God, you need to know what he says, right? And the reason you know this is from God is because it's spirit-led. When you walk in the Spirit, you can discern what's from the Spirit and what's of man. Everything in here goes against what our human nature wants to do. That's how you know this wasn't written by a man. This was written by the Spirit. And the Spirit is alive and well in here. And the Spirit is alive and well in here. So when it connects, and hey, sometimes it doesn't, because there's still flesh, right? So sometimes your flesh is uncomfortable at the things that you're reading, is like, man, I am so imperfect. I remember when I first started reading the Word in my teenage years, there was a lot of darkness in my life because of my surroundings and the things going on in my environment. And I would read the Word and I felt so much conviction, and it was so uncomfortable. And I was like, I don't like this. I need to grow in too many areas. To come back to how the Word is spirit-led. So that is why it's important to not only learn it from others and see others' interpretations of it, but learn it for yourself, because you wouldn't have a relationship with, let's say, a significant other and only connect with them through someone else, right? Like, when you want to have connection with your significant other, you're going to go directly to them. You're going to have conversations with them. You're not going to go to your friends. You're not going to go to your family members and say, hey, can you relay this message to my significant other? I want them to know this. Or, what do you think about my significant other? What's your interpretation about my significant other? Like, there's no value in that. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks or says about your significant other. That's your significant other. And if that's the person that you have a great relationship with, and you guys are healthy together and you guys love each other, then there's no need to go through other people to have that relationship. You're directly connected. That's the same thing with you and God. You're not going to go to just me or to another person to have that intimate relationship with God. You're going to go directly to God, because he's the one that can open your eyes to the things of him. And he's the one that's going to show you, hey, what this person is teaching is not okay. He's going to give you that direct communication. There's something in the book of Matthew that caught my attention that I wanted to share with you. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Okay. So we're in Matthew chapter 25, verse 14. The section is titled The Parable of the Talents. Again, it will be like a man going on a journey who called his servants and entrusted his property to them. To one he gave 5 talents of money, to another 2 talents, and to another 1 talent, each according to his ability. Then he went on his journey. The man who had received the 5 talents went at once and put his money to work and gained 5 more. So also, the one with the 2 talents gained 2 more. But the man who had received the 1 talent went off, dug a hole in the ground, and hid his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants returned and settled accounts with them. The man who had received the 5 talents brought the other 5. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 5 talents. See, I have gained 5 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. The man with the 2 talents also came. Master, he said, you entrusted me with 2 talents. See, I have gained 2 more. His master replied, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness. Then the man who had received the 1 talent came. Master, he said, I knew that you are a hard man, harvesting where you have not sown, and gathering where you have not scattered seed. So I was afraid and went out and hid your talent in the ground. See, here is what belongs to you. His master replied, this is heavy stuff, guys, okay? You wicked, lazy servant, so you knew that I harvest where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed? Well, then you should have put my money on deposit with the bankers, so that when I returned, I would have received it back with interest. Take the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what he has will be taken from him. And throw that worthless servant outside into the darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. So that's a little hardcore, am I right? The point that the word is trying to make here is, well, Jesus, right? Because Jesus is the one giving these parables, is that you can't be too afraid to show what God has given you. If God has given you certain talents, you must use those talents, because if you don't, there are consequences, right? So I used to be a very shy person, and at times that shyness comes out. And it's so easy to get caught up in, I don't want to do this, God, it's so uncomfortable. Putting myself out there is so uncomfortable. Speaking about you can be uncomfortable. Like, what about people's judgment? What are people going to say? What are people going to think? And ultimately, it doesn't matter. Like, people's opinions about you does not matter. Obviously, we're human. It hurts. It does. And I've had comments and mean things said about me, and I'm sure you have comments and mean things said about you, but that does not define who you are. So ultimately, others' opinions and comments should not stop you from acting in the talents that God has given you. So he's given me a lot of talents, and that's why I do so many different things, because I'm a multi-talented human being, and I have to respect that, and I have to exercise those talents, because if I'm a believer in God and I'm a believer in his word, then I have to respect what God is saying, and he wants us to partake in the talents he's given us. So I will be doing that. Okay guys, one eternity later, I finished my presentation. So my topic is on emotional wellness, and this is what I have. I'm not going to input everything into this video. I might. Okay, we'll see. In today's topic, I wanted to focus on the art of emotional wellness and some of the things that you can do to improve this area of your life. Emotional wellness also ties into our role as therapists, which we will lead into further in the segment. What are some ways to maintain and improve emotional wellness, you may ask? Take care of yourself by doing things that feed your body and mind, like working out, meditating, and maintaining a balanced diet. Give yourself some time to unwind and recuperate. Number 2. Make connections with others. Emotional well-being is correlated with strong social ties. Make new acquaintances, spend time with those you love, and engage in things you enjoy. Number 3. Communicate your emotions. Don't hold back your feelings. Instead, look for constructive outlets for your emotions, such as journaling, talking to a dependable friend or relative, or attending therapy. Number 4. Engage in mindfulness. Practice mindfulness, meditation, or deep breathing, as well as other peaceful and calming activities that help you stay in the present moment. Number 5, get enough sleep. Emotional well-being depends on getting enough sleep. Set a regular sleep pattern and strive for 7 to 9 hours of good sleep every night. Number 6, defy negative thinking. Recognize and confront bad thoughts. Reframe unpleasant situations in a more positive perspective and swap out negative thoughts for affirmations that are good. Number 7, establish attainable goals. Having a purpose and increasing self-esteem are two benefits of setting realistic goals. Divide big objectives into smaller, more doable tasks to lower tension and boost satisfaction. Number 8, seek professional assistance. Don't be afraid to ask a mental health expert for assistance if you're having emotional difficulties or feeling burdened. One effective strategy to better manage emotions and enhance emotional wellness is to speak with a therapist or counselor. This is an exercise that I'm going to do with my classmates. I wanted to ask each one of you, what is one skill you have mastered when it comes to your emotional wellness regimen? And secondly, what is one area of emotional wellness you'd like to improve upon, or something you'd like to add to your regimen to help improve this area of yourself? So I'm going to ask that to my classmates, and then I'm going to thank them for participating when they share. Then I'm going to say, now I want everyone to journal something they've been struggling with. Let me know when everyone is done. You can either write it down on a piece of paper or type it on your computer. The point of this exercise is to visually see the words you use to describe this area of struggle. You don't have to share what you write down, so I want you to be as honest as possible. I'm going to give them a moment of silence so they can do this exercise. Now, I want you to ask yourself a few questions on what you wrote down. Number 1, who is speaking to you? Is this the voice of someone that loves you and wants the absolute best for you? Or number 2, is this someone that wants to discourage you and bring you down? The reason asking these questions is essential to what you wrote down is because this is where you can gauge if what you are struggling with is coming from a place of love or a place of rejection and shame. When you are trying to help yourself through a situation and your approach is shame, your ability to grow is substantially reduced. You get left in the same cycle of struggle and incapacity, which is not fun for anyone that is trying to develop any area of their life. Having the ability to help yourself from a place of love and acceptance makes it easier on the days you fall short and leaves you with encouragement to try again. This leads me into a source I wanted to share with you that could help you understand the importance of leading from a place of love. And it's called Elevating the Human Experience: 3 Paths to Love and Worth at Work. This is a book that's written by Amelia Dunlop. The book talks about how we should bring love and worth into our work lives to boost performance and growth. It explores 3 paths: loving ourselves, recognizing the worth of others, and creating a loving community at work. Amelia shares her own journey and combines insights from different fields to spark meaningful conversations about values and purpose. It's a practical guide for anyone who's felt unworthy at work or wants to lead with love and empathy, which I feel is essential to any workplace. If our place in the world as therapists is to help others heal their trauma and wounds, it is crucial for us as therapists to heal our own traumas and wounds. This leaves a safe space of love and acceptance for those that are struggling and come to us for help. It reduces our judgment and gives the person struggling a place to grow that's filled with understanding. This is something they may have never experienced before you. Here's a list of things that will make you a good therapist through taking care of your emotional well-being. This will actively pour into your role as a therapist because how you learn to be there for yourself is how you will show up for others seeking your guidance. Number 1, a therapist actually listens to you. Do you listen to yourself in times of struggle or hardship, or do you ignore it until you can't ignore it any longer? The simplest aspects of a therapist's work must be listening, right? Not exactly. Listening is a complex ability that entails much more than just sitting there and listening to someone else talk. A skilled therapist will show you that they are paying attention to what you are saying as well as understanding it. It may be time to find a new therapist if you sense that they are preoccupied with something other than you as you speak, such as the time on the clock or their shopping list. In what way do you need to see a new version of yourself if you are not showing up for yourself in this way? Are you passive about your feelings and emotions, or do you deeply care when something is bothering you? In a healthy way, of course, from a place of love and concern. Number 2, in the presence of a therapist, you feel validated. So how do you validate yourself? Your thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and experiences should all be acknowledged by your therapist. This does not imply that they concur with anything and everything you say or do. Actually, there is a significant distinction between approval and validation. Recognition and acceptance are key components of validation. When a therapist validates your experience, they are taking what you tell them at face value. Like its opponent, disapproval. Acceptance is a value judgment. A competent therapist attempts to refrain from assigning values to your words, deeds, and thoughts. In what way are you showing up for yourself to validate your emotions and experiences? Number 3, a therapist wants what's best for you. Do you want what's best for you? A competent therapist will respect your agency and be present to provide recommendations and resources. Never feel as though your therapist is pressuring you to do something against your will. This includes decisions you make for your own care, such as transferring to a different kind of professional or pausing therapy for a few weeks. A licensed therapist will respect your choice, even if it doesn't directly benefit them. How do you show up in your life in this way? And is this what you allow from others when they show up for you? Because if not, it's time to question what company you may be keeping around you that's impacting your emotional wellness. Number 4, a therapist is a strong communicator. Good communicators spend more time listening than speaking. Although listening is an important aspect of a therapist's work, speaking abilities shouldn't be sacrificed. Since a therapist is also an educator, they ought to be able to simplify ideas and provide an understandable explanation of symptoms. Despite years of education, the language used by therapists should be understandable rather than scientific. A competent therapist will also check that you have understood by asking you questions, and if not, will take the time to restate their reasoning. What does your communication style look like for you? Are you healthy in your means of speaking to yourself? If we go back to your journal entry from earlier, who was speaking to you? Someone of love and compassion or an enemy? Communication style is essential to our journey. And the better we get at healthy communication with ourselves, the easier it becomes to communicate with strangers that will one day be sitting in front of you, hoping you'll have the answers to their distress, when most times the answer will be a listening ear and an open heart. Number 5, they check in with you. You may be unfamiliar with navigating the therapist-client interaction. It could be awkward for you to bring up specific topics with your therapist, such as how you're not happy with the way your therapy is going. Your therapist should feel more at ease initiating these check-ins as a qualified professional. They ought to take the time to inquire about your opinion of your treatment frequently and make adjustments as necessary. In what way do you check in with yourself? Is there an area of your life you don't check in on because it may bring up feelings of emotional dysregulation? Those are the areas that should be brought to the forefront of your attention, because those are the places that will lead us into the best version of ourselves. The more we put something off, the longer it will take us to improve upon that area of ourselves that greatly need our attention. So I challenge you to check in with yourself and make sure everything is okay. If not, ask yourself how you can go about addressing the situation that may have come to mind. If nothing comes to mind, you may be okay in this area of yourself. Number 6, a good therapist takes the time to educate themselves. Your therapist may be an expert in some aspects of human psychology, but it doesn't mean they are an all-knowing source. Some of what you bring to the table may be unfamiliar to them, depending on how long they've practiced and how specialized they are. That is entirely typical. When your therapist is ignorant of anything, they should be honest about it. A dedicated therapist never stops learning new things. What areas of your emotional wellness require you to learn about what's best for you? Are you putting the time and energy to learn these variables to further assist your emotional security? 7, you view your therapist as an ally. Do you view yourself as an ally, or are you your own worst enemy? Your therapist is not your supervisor, closest friend, or guru. A therapist can help you find what you're looking for, but their job isn't to instruct you on what to do or how to do it. An effective therapist is an ally. From the time you meet, they will strive to establish a relationship with you built on trust. It's called a therapeutic alliance in this case. Are you an ally to your emotional health, or are you an enemy to your emotional health? Number 8, a good therapist earns your trust. Do you trust yourself? Speaking of trust, it's one of the most important, if not the most important, ingredient in your relationship with your therapist. A 2019 study, and then I'm going to provide the link, contends that building trust is essential to resolving conflicts that may emerge between clients and psychotherapists. How well have you cultivated trust with yourself and your emotional well-being? Number 9, you notice a change in yourself when working with a good therapist. It takes time to make changes, especially significant change. Therapy can take longer for some people than for others. Having said that, you should see the benefit of therapy within a month or so of beginning it. These will be modest, particularly initially. It's not a good idea to go into therapy expecting significant changes quickly, but you should take the time to assess your own development and talk about it with your therapist. In what ways are you noticing change within your emotional regulation patterns? Are these areas improving within yourself, or is there something that keeps coming up as a struggle no matter how hard you're trying? This could mean that this area of yourself isn't being met with love and kindness, and that approach may bring about improvement. I challenge you to try it out. Number 10, a good therapist challenges you respectfully. Various therapeutic philosophies employ various strategies to promote personal development. Psychoanalysis is the study of the unconscious, while humanism is the provision of the emotional resources necessary for personal growth. In some forms of treatment, illogical thought habits are questioned. It is important to do this with grace and without putting you down for thoughts that might not be helping you. Rethink the connection if your therapist ever makes you feel foolish, damaged, or guilty. Rethink the connection within yourself if you ever make yourself feel foolish, damaged, or guilty. Number 11, a good therapist offers a range of solutions. No treatment approach is appropriate for every patient. Whether it's goal setting, progressive muscle relaxation, or meditation, there are situations when methods that work for one client just don't work for another. Your therapist should be able to offer alternative options if a specific solution doesn't work for you. Even though it's crucial to be open to trying new things, their purpose is to provide you with a set of tools rather than just one. If there's an area that you've been struggling with in your emotional development, have you attempted other measures to help assist, or have you always tried the same measure? It could be time to approach the matter through a different means, because the solution is never to give up. Number 13, a good therapist doesn't rush your treatment. Regarding the objectives of your therapy and the anticipated time frame of reaching those objectives, you and your therapist have to be in agreement. It's crucial to review this strategy from time to time as well. A good therapist will demonstrate flexibility and adaptation if your treatment isn't going as you had hoped. This could be because you're finding therapy more difficult than you had anticipated, or you don't have much time to dedicate to exercises in between sessions. Circumstances and needs evolve. Therapy needs to as well. In what way are you not rushing the areas in your life that need emotional supports? It's important to be patient with yourself throughout your process, just like a good therapist would be. Number 14, a good therapist is mindful of all aspects of your identity. It's not probable that your therapist will share every part of your identification, including your sexual orientation, belief system, and class identity, even though many people look for therapists with comparable backgrounds. It's all right. A competent therapist will try to comprehend your perspective and how it affects your feelings and experiences. They occasionally may choose to accept or reject therapies based on your background. Sometimes it might not function. It's acceptable to look for someone else who understands your culture, values, and background better if you don't think your practitioner does. Are you mindful of your identity when taking into consideration your emotional capacity? For example, there may be areas of yourself you're trying to reject or completely eliminate that are requiring attention from you. To further explore this, I will paint a picture for you. Let's say you have been told your whole life that sharing your feelings with others isn't okay. Through the exploration of human psychology, we find this is essential to the human experience, right? So what parts of you are you denying that are essential to our human development that you've been made to feel is insignificant or have no right to be shared? Don't deny parts of yourself from a place of shame or rejection. Those parts of you deserve a safe space to express themselves, as long as they are not hurting yourself or others. Be mindful of all that you are, and not just bits and pieces that will make others comfortable while being in your presence. Number 16. A good therapist gives you the tools to do the work. Counseling is difficult work. Asking for assistance is just the start. Although your therapist cannot complete the tasks assigned to you, they can offer you the tools and encouragement you require to acquire fresh perspectives, hone new abilities, and form new routines. What tools have you given yourself to develop your emotional health? Number 17. When you are working with a good therapist, you can see the value in your work together. How you feel about working with a therapist is one of the most crucial indicators of a good one. Even if therapy can provide a variety of difficulties, you should remain optimistic about its future. A competent therapist gives you hope for the work you're doing and boosts your confidence. In what ways are you giving your emotions hope for the future and boosting your own confidence through the mere presence of these very emotions? Learning to be friends with your feelings can create an environment of hope. The more we run from these emotions, the more they can creep up on us in situations where they are unwarranted. Taking the lead with your emotional well-being will strengthen you as a person, not weaken you. So my final thoughts to you are: accept your feelings for all that they are and be present with them. Respect them because they are here to teach you a valuable lesson. Grow with them and release them when they are ready to go. This will create the strongest version of yourself, and one day when you look back, you will be grateful for all the work you have done, and you will see all the value and fruition it has brought forth. With all of that being said, this completes my ELG. I truly hope each and every one of you learned something today. I know I did. Thank you for your time and attention, Professor. That's my presentation. I'm definitely going to go a lot slower because this needs to take up 45 minutes of the class time. So I gotta go. Love you. Bye.